episode of The Swish Show. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Tuckwood. Today's guest is someone that, when I first saw their content a few years ago, I was convinced they were talking directly to me. I heard him say that the single most effective way to sell anything to anyone is to be a problem finder and a problem solver, not a product pusher. And that really spoke to me personally. The embodiment of this philosophy has made him one of the wealthiest sales professionals on the planet. During his 17-year sales career, 17 years, wow, he was recognized by the Direct Selling Association as the 45th highest earning producer out of 100 million salespeople selling anything worldwide. His earnings as a commission-only salesperson were in the multiple seven figures every single year. He's the chairman of Seventh Level, which is a global sales training company with its headquarters down in Sydney, Australia, about an hour away from here on the Gold Coast. His particular brand of sales training pioneers the unique use of behavioral science and human psychology within the sales process, which is reflective of his deep studies in the subject from Utah Valley University. And for those of you that have been following Swish for a while, you'll know that's why I wanted to get him on, because I'm obsessed with this side of sales as well. On the back of that, he's helped over 141,000 salespeople in 37 countries in the last 3 years alone to 3, 5, and even 10x their sales results. He's been featured in Forbes, USA Today, Inc. Magazine, Entrepreneur Magazine, Thrive Global, Yahoo Finance, Disrupt Magazine. Anything or anyone that wants to talk about sales persuasion and the role of psychology and human behavior in the buying process, they've had a chat with you over the years. Mr. Jeremy Weiner, thanks for joining me, mate. How are you?
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me on. You're going to have to forgive me. I'm in a makeshift office today. We just moved from Missouri, where we normally live, to Scottsdale, Arizona, because we're opening up our USA headquarters for the USA, because we don't even have that. We just have our international headquarters in Sydney, which is very close to you, where our CEO is at and our VP, all those guys. But we had no USA headquarters. So we're opening that up here in about 2 weeks here in Scottsdale, Arizona. So I'm in this little makeshift office. I hope it's okay for you guys.
It's okay. The transition works.
The transition works.
And the
I still, man, I just still have the cords back here. Like I had a handyman threw this all together yesterday because I'm like, crap, I have no office to do this podcast in. I think I can just do it on my phone. We literally just got here like 2 days ago. So
it's
hopefully,
real life, right?
Hopefully it's okay for you guys.
People want to see behind the scenes. They want to see
This is definitely behind the scenes.
Are the books real though? That's not an image. That's not a.
I think they're real. Yeah, I think they're real. This is a good book by Chris Voss. It's a negotiation book. It's a really good book. I like his stuff, taking his course. So yeah, I've got real books here. Got lots of. We've got thousands of books, but not enough book space in this little place to put them in. So we got a nice little library. I have about 4,000 books. I'm crazy.
Yeah, amazing. There was one thing you said in there which I found quite interesting, right? So you've just moved to Scottsdale, Arizona. But your international HQ is in Sydney, Australia, and you're obviously American. I
am. Yeah.
How did that come about to start in there?
So crazy. So I started Seventh Level myself about a little bit over 3 years ago with my executive assistant. So when I left my job, my sales job, I'm like, hey, anybody want to come work for me? Blah, blah. My assistant came. That was it. All right. So just me and my assistant. The first year, I got on like a marketing agency. It was basically me trying to figure everything out. And we did pretty decent. I thought, we made a couple million in revenue for the first year. Wasn't bad with just me and my assistant, right? Not knowing what we're doing. And then the second year, I'm like, okay, I'm not very good with running a business, like me being the CEO, running the business, doing all the training, getting new clients, lead generation. I've got one sales guy at that point. Like we need to really grow this. So that second year, I'm like, okay, who do I have that's gone through my virtual training programs or like my advanced stuff where I've trained them myself that is crushing it? And I'm like, what about this guy in Australia named Matt Ryder? Okay. And Matt Ryder at that point, I think he had just sold like one of his fitness businesses or gyms, but he crushed it in that space. The dude, he went from making like 20, 25 grand a month in commissions to over 100 grand a month in commissions. And I'm like, that's the guy. He's got a good business, acumen, like knows what to do. He also understands NEPQ, which is our methodology, neuro-emotional persuasion question, one of my top 5 students ever. And so I helped him self-persuade himself to become the CEO. Now he's the CEO, my business partner. And then I'm like, hey, we need another guy that's really going to rock this out with us. And so we brought Marco Cortese over, which is one of my clients as well, a couple of years ago, made over $1 million in 2020 in straight commissions. So in January of this year, so only 9 months ago, we brought him over as the vice president of sales, and he's running our sales teams, all that kind of stuff. And that's really how we blew up. I mean, in the last 12 months, we did more, like 3 times as much revenue than we did in the first 2 years. Like triple the revenue. So really grown. And we won the Inc. 5000 fastest growing company awards here in the United States. You might have saw some postings on that. So we were ranked, I think 1,000, I can't remember, like 1,200 something out of the top 5,000 fastest growing companies in any categories in the United States. And it's cool because about 7 million companies apply for that award.
Yeah, wow.
They only pick the top 5,000 fastest growing. So, and the cool thing is for this year, the next 12 months, we've actually already 4 times the revenue we did for 2020 when we won that award. So we're trying to figure things out still, but we're doing better every month.
Yeah. Amazing. Like, obviously accelerated growth, and you did touch on there, putting the right people in the right places, but also being very aware of your own limitations and knowing where your skill set lies, I guess. You can't say you recognized it too late, but how did you have that penny drop? Was it just a feeling of plateauing, or that?
I think you don't know what you don't know. I mean, I was a sales professional before. I was a vice president of sales for, in 4 industries. I made that amount of money. I was also a chief sales officer, a vice president of sales, but you're still not the business owner of the company with those positions. It's a corporate position. You're not the actual business owner. You're not putting your own money in. You're not, as a business owner, you have to be able to build the right team around you. Okay. And obviously my skill set is training salespeople, sales training, content, those type of things. But I never run a business, especially a business that, in my mind, I wanted to scale to a couple $100 million in revenue per year. Okay. And so I'm like, how do I do that? Like, I don't know what I don't know. I need to find somebody who does know that type of stuff. So it's really it's about building the right team around you. Until you have the right team around you, it doesn't matter how great your training is, how great the results your clients get. None of that matters until you have the right team that's going to help you scale. So now we're a multiple 8-figure a year business, right? But now we're like, okay, what got us here is not going to get us there. How do we go from where we're at now, multiple 8 figures a year, now to 9 figures a year? We have to expand our way of thinking, and we have to add in more team members where we lack their skill sets that they can come in and help us grow that.
Yeah, amazing. I love that phrase, what got us here, what won't get us there. We were, it's been well publicized, but in 2018, we were pretty fortunate. We took our business model onto the Australian version of Shark Tank, and we secured 3 investors. And one of them actually said to me, Andrew said exactly that. He said, what got you here, won't get you there. And for want of a better phrase, that every now and then you have to shed the skin, right? There's going to be some people that we're going to lose along the way. How do you cope with that? Like the people that helped you get to a certain level, and then recognizing that maybe they don't have the skill set to help us get to the next level, or the desire?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's really hard because, the first year when it was basically me, my executive assistant, we brought on like a marketer person, a copywriter person, we eventually got a couple salespeople in, a couple admin people. The only people that are still with us right now, once I brought Matt over, our CEO and our VP, is my executive assistant. Yeah. Everybody else from that first year and a half is gone. And sometimes you just have to shed the skin. And maybe it just wasn't a right fit for them. It wasn't a right fit for us. And so everybody in our company is basically brand new, except my executive assistant, who's been with me like 8 years. So she's with me at my job as well. She's awesome. She'll never leave. Hopefully never leave. Yeah. She's a good fit. She does a lot, but I think it's so true. Like what got you there is not going to get you there. So sometimes you're going to shed some people where maybe they just lack the skill sets to take you to the next level, and it's just not a right fit.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. I want to quickly go back a second. I want to go back to young Jeremy, if we can, and how we fell into the world of sales. Is it in the parents, in the back, in the family? Where did it come from?
Was my parents taught me how to sell? Oh my gosh. Yeah. That would be an interesting story. So yeah, I got started. I'll give you like a brief overview, because I think, I think when people understand, like, because when people introduce me on a podcast, they're like, this guy made multiple 7 figures a year. He was ranked number 45 in the entire world selling anything. They're like, oh my gosh, like that guy must have been born with all these sales skills. Like he was just born out of his mother's womb as like, a great communicator like Socrates or Jesus Christ himself or something. But, really nothing can be further from the truth. I got in sales, when was it? 2001. So we're talking about 20 years ago. So I got into sales 20 years ago. I was a broke, burned out college student, didn't have anything to my name. And I remember in college, I think it was a junior year in college, they had this like meeting where like, hey, come to the meeting, you get free pizza. And, we're going to talk about how you can make so much money in the summers when you're not in college, where you don't have to work the rest of the year. I mean, like legitly, that was the whole pitch thing. And I was like, wow, like I can make enough money in 3 months in the summer, right? I can study, like I can, go through my classes, and I don't have to, like, work a minimum wage job. So like I was in, I mean, they hired everybody. There was like 50 people there. They hired all 50. It was straight commission, and it was selling home security systems door to door. Okay. So about a month later, really without any training, they just gave you a script. Like, here, read these books. They were like from the sales gurus who hadn't sold anything for decades. You probably know who I'm talking about. They're famous books. I mean, they're still on they're still on Amazon. Like people still buy these. I've got them in here. Yeah. Yeah. I've got them, I've got them some of these shelves and other bookshelves and stuff like that. But it's like, these books were written in the 80s and the 90s and even 20 years ago. And I read the books like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I thought that selling was going to be easy because that's what everybody, taught me. They're like, yeah, you just go out and you're going to sell and you're going to have fun. And, so basically they drove us out in a van. Have you ever been in door-to-door sales yourself?
I've trained a lot of people. I haven't actually done it, no.
Yeah. So they drive you out in this van and they basically drop you off because like, they don't want you driving out yourself because you might hide in your car. So they drop you off in the van and the manager's like, hey, go make some sales. We'll pick you up after dark. And this was like, they drop you off at noon. They pick you up about 9:30 at night. And so you're on your own, man, in a not so safe neighborhood. All right. And I was like, oh, excited, like, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. And I started knocking on the doors and talking to my prospects about all the features and the benefits of how this was going to help them. And it was so great. And it was going to do all this stuff. But I started noticing I got all these objections from the very first store. Like, we can't afford it. We don't need it. Your price is too high. I need to talk to my spouse. Let me think it over. We're good. We already have something like that. Can you call me back a week, a month, a year later? If anybody on your show, do you ever get those objections as well? So after about 7 or 8 weeks of all that rejection, okay, hardly making any sales. Remember, straight commission sales job. Okay. I remember one night, this is kind of a turning point. This is probably 8 weeks into this. Okay. I was making just maybe, this was 20 years ago. I bet I was making 1 sale a week, which was like a couple $100. So basically I would have made more making a minimum wage job at that point. Yeah. But I remember like one day, like I had worked like 12 hours that day. It was like on a Friday, right before the weekend. I had made 0 sales for the week. So I'd worked 60 hours and made $0. I literally could have made more, asking people for money as a homeless person. Okay. So I remember sitting down on this curb and I remember like my legs like aching, when you go door to door, like your legs get tired and it was aching. I was like drenched with sweat because it was in the middle of the summer. I was just sweating. And I remember sitting there and I was like, what am I going to do? Like I had barely got married. I think I just turned 22, had a kid on the way. I think, yeah, Cammie was, I think almost born or just barely born. Oh, wow. And I'm like, okay, how am I going to go tell my wife at the time, we don't have enough money to pay rent in 2 weeks. We're probably going to have to move in with your parents or my parents. Okay. I was pretty embarrassed. All right. 22-year-old kid. She was like 19 or 20, kid on the way. What am I going to do? And I remember like at that point, like I felt, I think broken as a human being. Okay. And I think that, the reason why I'm telling you that story is like I said, imagine me a few years later, getting up to almost $3 million a year in straight commissions as a W-2 salesperson. Here in America, W-2 means you probably know this, but you're employed by the company. I wasn't the owner company. And I did that in 4 different industries over that, 17 plus selling career. But where I started at, completely rock bottom. Okay. So imagine what would have happened if I had just decided that I was done. wouldn't be on this podcast with you right now. Okay. That's the turning. It's all the butterfly effect. I remember the manager picked me up that night and he popped in this Tony Robbins CD. This was back in like 2000, 2001 when CDs were popular. You know, he popped in the Tony Robbins CD. And Tony said something like this. I might be butchering it, but he said, most people fail for the simple reason that they don't learn the right skills that are necessary to succeed. They don't learn the right skills. He actually goes on to say, everybody is taught skills, everybody. But he said, people who fail are ones who are not taught the right ones. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was like this light bulb went off in my head that maybe what the company was training me, you know, from what I was learning from the old sales gurus, I call them now, maybe they just weren't the right skills. Maybe they were just outdated and didn't work very well anymore. Because I'd never thought that it could be something like that. And at that point, you know, I was in college at that point. My background was behavioral science and human psychology. And I was learning from my professors that the most persuasive way to communicate was over here. But what I was learning from the company and the sales gurus was completely over here. It was like exact opposites. So I'm like, how do I take these techniques about human behavior and how the mind works and how they make decisions? Because it was all theory in the classroom. All these books I read were theory. There was no sales process. How do I take that and inject that into selling? Okay. And that's where I started learning human psychology and how to get prospects to pull me in so I didn't have to push them. And at that point, once I really started learning that process, selling became very, very easy and extremely profitable. So that's kind of the overview of how that all started happening.
How do you think, because you talk about the old sales gurus a lot, and I've definitely been through the majority of them myself. How do you think that happened, right? Why was there such a disconnect with actual human behavior and the way we're inspired to take action and sales techniques, right? Like how have we changed as a consumer? Are we buying different in 2020 or 2021?
Well, yeah, the consumer of our day is far more skeptical, far more cautious than they ever been. Now, what has triggered that to happen? It's not like they just woke up and we evolved in the year 2021. We're like, I'm going to be skeptical and more cautious. It's been a series of events and things that have happened, especially because of the power of the internet. And especially social media, like in the last 10, 15, 20 years, this has all changed, okay? Because of the power of the internet, especially social media, your prospects know that they have many choices to choose the exact product or service that you sell, far more than they ever have. Think about it 20 years ago, okay? I don't know how old you are, but think about it 20 years ago. Internet's starting to come around. Nobody really, like before that, what was the link between the company and the consumer? It was really the salesperson. Okay. People relied on salespeople to educate them about their products and services. Besides like TV or, you know, newspapers or radio, that's how somebody really learned what you did. But now with the power of the internet, and like I said, social media, your prospects, they know everything about you by simply doing a Google search on their phone. Legitly, they know about your price points. They know who your competition is. They know how long you've been in business. They know your Yelp rating over here in America. They know your consumer reviews. They literally know everything about you by punching your company's name into a search engine. And because of that, they will no longer be pressured or pushed by manipulative, pushy salespeople because they just know they have many choices to choose the exact thing you're selling. I think that's one of the biggest effects that salespeople don't understand is that phenomenon and how that's changed. And it's only getting worse.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're still using those old school techniques, you're assumptive, and we can go into that. If you're still using those techniques at our age, it's only getting worse because consumers are still going over to this other side.
Can you touch on that? Because you talk a lot about neutral language, which I love, right? So you said assumptive sales is an old school technique, right? So let's dissect that a little bit further. Give us some examples of the assumptive language that people might resonate with that they're using. Maybe they've been trained the wrong skills, and then the neutral language they can replace it with.
Yeah, and let me preference that by kind of saying, I think one of the biggest mistakes, because I get asked this question all the time, like what's one of the biggest mistakes that salespeople or entrepreneurs, you know, do when they're trying to sell? And I think one of the biggest mistakes that they make is they come across way too enthusiastic about their products and services, and they talk about their solution far too early in the conversation. Now, typically when I say that at training events, people are like, well, what? I've always been told I've got to be excited about what I sell. I got to get behind what I sell. And I completely agree with you, but you have to keep your excitement to yourself. Keep it internal. Of course, you have to be excited and passionate about your products and services, but you have to keep that to yourself. You got to get rid of the commission breath. I always call it the commission breath, right? And here's what one thing we have to realize, human behavior 101. Within the first 7 to 12 seconds of every sales call you're on, or any type of sales interaction you're in, I don't care if it's B2B, B2C, in person, on Zoom, on the phone, door to door, it doesn't matter. Your prospects are subconsciously picking up on your verbal and nonverbal cues from your tonality and what you are saying and or asking that is triggering their brain to do one of two things. It's triggering to react in one of two ways. Okay, first of all, let's talk about this because you brought this up. If you come across aggressive, if you come across needy, assumptive, and attached, it actually triggers the brain, and you don't know the right questions to ask, it triggers the brain to go into what we call fight or flight mode, where they're trying to get rid of you fast. And they say things like this, I'm just too busy. Can you call me back later? Or, I don't really need it. I think we're good. Or, gosh, we already have that. Or, we don't have the money for that. Or, I'm good. Or, what, I tell you what, leave me some information and call me back in a week, a month, a year later. Does that ever happen to anybody listening to this? Of course. Now, if you come across more neutral, like you asked, if you become more neutral, relaxed, unbiased, and detached, that's a big word, detached, and you ask the right questions, it triggers their brain to become so curious that they feel like they want to engage with you. They want to open up to you because they feel like you have something very important to offer them. So we have to come across really detached from the expectations of making the sale by saying it, and instead focus on whether or not you can actually help them, whether or not they actually have problems that you can actually solve. Now, do I mean when you get on a sales call or in an appointment that you shouldn't go to make the sale? Of course not. Your goal is to make a sale on every single call, or at least to advance it to that point if you're more of in a complex selling environment, okay? But you have to keep your excitement to yourself. The moment your prospect feels like you are trying to sell them is the moment they start to shut down emotionally. And if you cannot bring out their emotions to help them relive pain of what's been happening, there's no urgency for them to do anything to buy your solution. You with me?
Yeah, 100%. I love it. And this takes practice, right? This is I'm a massive fan of role play. I'm assuming you are too. Although I shouldn't assume, but I'm assuming you are. So we role play 4 times a day here in the office. Talk to me about role play. Talk to me about the importance of it.
It's all about having the right tonality. Okay, your questions have to be on key, but it's not just the question you're asking; it's how you're asking the question. Okay, so it's your verbal pausing. Like, let's say if I ask what we call a consequence question. Okay, consequence questions allow your prospect to question their way of thinking that's allowed their situation or problem to still happen. Okay, it gets them to think like what if they don't do anything about it? So here's a generic version. If I say, okay, but what are you going to do if you don't do anything about this and the situation gets even worse? Or what are the ramifications if you don't do anything about this as a company and this gets even worse? Now, did you see the tonality, my skepticism? Now, if I said it like this, what are you going to do if you don't do anything about it and the situation gets worse? It doesn't have the same psychological impact of me saying, okay, but what are you going to do if you don't do anything about this as a company and this gets even worse? See, I slowed down, I paused. See, when you do that, when you slow down and you have that verbal pause, it triggers their brain to think deeper about the question you just asked. Okay. Here's an example of what not to do. Let's say if you're selling retail and you're looking for a pair of jeans, you walk into the store and the salesperson says, how can I help you? What do most people do? Just looking. See, it's a knee-jerk question. How can I help you? That they hear every day from every salesperson trying to sell everything. And they're giving you a knee-jerk reaction. If you don't want knee-jerk reactions, because do human beings buy on logic or emotion? We all know it's emotion, right? Brain studies prove that at this point. There's no debate on that, okay? But if we give them a knee-jerk question and we do it too fast, they don't think deep about the question. They just give you like a one-off answer. They don't even think about what they're saying. But when you slow down and use the right tonality like I just did, it triggers their brain to think deeper about what you're asking. Make sense?
Yeah, and you get a more considered answer, right? So considered question, we get a considered answer. And you talk about tonality, but you had those verbal pauses in there as well, almost like an intentional stutter. I notice sometimes that's intentional, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what we're practicing in the role play. So yeah, the language is important, but the delivery of the words is even more so.
It's so true. Yeah. You know, one big thing that we're big on, and you kind of brought it up like when you introduced me, is, you know, as salespeople, as entrepreneurs, as coaches, or what consultants, whatever your clients do, okay, we have to amplify our skill level, or we just get left behind, and we call it the trash basket of life. Like, people are learning these skills out here. If you don't learn these type of skills that work with human behavior, guess what? Your competitors are starting to learn those. They are out there, okay? They're learning these, and you won't stand a chance if you're still using these old school techniques that have been around since the dinosaur ages of selling, like, do you want the red one or the blue one? When would you like to take delivery? Monday at 4 or Wednesday at 5? Like, people have heard that 1 billion times, and you're just competing with what they already don't like. And it just triggers sales resistance. The wall comes up, and then you're fighting through these objections when you're the one triggering the objections to have. So we have to, like you said, we have to become what we call problem finders and problem solvers, not product pushers. Now, people are always like, well, what do you mean by problem finder? Like, I'm a good problem solver. Like, why can't I just be a problem solver? Well, of course, right? But if you can't help them find out what the real problems are, well, they never buy from you, so you can't really solve their problems, right? So, and here's an exercise I always do. If anybody, if you want to do this, if people want to do this while they're listening here, you take a piece of paper, okay? And I always ask this when I'm doing a virtual event or like a live audience events, and I say, okay, do your prospects have problems? Raise your hand if your prospects you sell to have problems. Everybody raises their hand. Yeah, my prospects have problems. And I say, okay, I want you to write down the 2 biggest problems that your prospects have. Now, half the room sometimes can't even do that. They're like, I think they have this problem, or I think they have that problem. I'm like, okay, that's your problem. You don't even know what problems your prospects have, okay? If you don't know what your problems are and how your solution solves that, you're screwed. So write down 2 of the biggest problems your prospects have. Say whatever those are, okay? Now ask yourself, does your solution solve those 2 problems? Now, when I say that, everybody's like, yes, my solution solves these problems. Okay. So I'm assuming that's what I hear. So I'm hearing your prospects have problems, your solution solves those. So if your prospects have problems and your solution solves those, then what's the missing link? Why are they not buying from you? And people are like, they're like, I don't know. What is it? And I always suggest something. It's not your leads. It's not that you don't meditate enough, or you don't listen to enough Tony Robbins. I love Tony Robbins. You don't listen to enough personal development, or that you don't work hard enough. And I always say, how many of you in here bust your butt and you work hard? Everybody, yeah, I work hard. Okay, so it's none of that, because you all work hard. It's what you're saying, and more importantly, not asking, that's triggering your prospects to run the other way. That's what it is. So once you change what you're saying, and more importantly, you learn the right questions to ask at the right time in the sales conversation, all of that can change. Because in our day and age, you have to be much better at problem finding even than problem solving. Right? We talked about it. If your prospects don't buy from you, then you can't solve their problems. So you have to be better at problem finding. And that means asking the right questions at the right time that helps your prospects find problems in their mind that they didn't even know they had. One thing we all have to realize is that most of your prospects, when you initially talk to them, even if they book on your calendar, don't know they have a problem. Okay? Or maybe they know they have a problem, but they don't realize how bad the problem really is. Or through your questioning ability, you're able to help them see that instead of 1 problem they thought they had, they have 2 or 3 or 4 other problems that they didn't realize. Or maybe they didn't understand the consequences of what would happen if they don't solve the problem. See, that's why you have to be better at problem finding. Now, what are most salespeople? So when companies bring us in to train salespeople, when we listen to their calls, we find that most salespeople are what are called product pushers. Even if they think they're consultative selling, they're like, oh, I've asked some questions. Oh, what questions do you ask? Well, I ask them what keeps them awake at night. And I ask them what are 2 problems they have. And I ask them what solution they're looking for. And I ask them what type of budget they have. I'm like, no. Those questions are not making you sales. Those are logical-based questions. And if you ask logical-based questions, what type of answers are they going to give you? Logical-based answers in return. And do human beings move on logic or emotion? 100% emotion, right? So consultative selling is going to get you a little bit more better results than boiler room selling, but it's not going to make you like making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year as a sales professional. So most salespeople we find are what are called product pushers, right? They've been taught, ask a few consultative questions about the needs of the client. Okay. And then they go into their sales pitch, talking about the features and the benefits of the product and service and how they have the best this and the best that, which by the way, every company and every salesperson says they have the best product, right? How many salespeople, Ryan, that try to sell you something tell you that their product is the 5th best in the market? Nobody.
It's pretty average, to be honest.
Yeah, everybody says they have the best.
Yeah.
So when you say things like that, like we have the best this, we have the best that, and you talk down about your competition, your prospects psychologically actually trust you less because they're used to every single salesperson saying the same thing. So we have to be better, much better at problem finding in our day and age, even than problem solving, period.
Yeah. And this is what I love about sales now. And my background is engineering, so I'm not a natural salesperson. As you said, there's no born salesperson. I was quite resistant to the industry when I got into it. But I truly now believe that it is impact. And when you become a sales professional and you have that ability to tell your truth better, to ask the right questions at the right time and uncover the why behind the desire, as opposed to just what do I want, it's understanding why they want it. You can actually change life. I don't care what you sell. Like you're removing a stress, a headache, you're helping people have more financial freedom. Like that's literally changing lives. What do you say about when people feel that this is, because it is very intentional, right? We're asking the right questions to uncover problems people don't know they have.
Yeah.
That's intentional. What do you say to people that say that's manipulative or we're trying to push pain? I know we are trying to push pain, obviously.
Well, we have to, I'm not pushing pain. I'm helping relive the pain, because you have to understand if you're a salesperson and you think that asking questions to help your prospects find problems that they didn't think they had is manipulative, then you're not really solving any of their problems. Because if you just go in and they say, I have this problem, they tell you, and you don't do a proper diagnosis, you are doing them a disservice. In fact, you're doing something horrible. It's like you go to the doctor and you're like, doctor, I need this pill. I have this headache. That's all I want. Just give me the pill and I have the headache. And the doctor's like, okay, here you go. And then a month later, you die of a brain tumor. Well, if the doctor was allowed to ask the right questions, he might have found out that you've had multiple headaches that's been going on for months. You've been vomiting. You can't sleep at night. All these factors that would have taught him to say, we might need to give you, a CAT scan to see what's going on in your brain. And if we would have done that, he would have found a tumor and maybe they could have operated and saved your life. That's what you're doing. Yeah. If you can't ask questions to your prospects to help them find problems that they didn't know they had. Most of your prospects don't know what they don't know. You do, because you're dealing with all these problems from all your customers. So you are literally letting your prospects down if you don't ask questions to help them see what problems they have and what are the consequences if they don't do anything. You are literally causing more pain to them if you can't help them see that they have more problems. So I would say it's worse.
Amazing. I mean, like our whole brand is called, we're called SWISH, selling with integrity, selling honestly. And I always say, where are the ethics and the morals in letting somebody go to a competitor to use a substandard service because you didn't have the right questions to uncover their true.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's exactly
a disservice, right?
It's so true. And you have to ask your prospect, like, which is more risky? Is it more risky for you to get the money together, the funding to be able to solve the problem and get where you want to go? Or is it more risky to do nothing at all? The problems stay the same, stay in status quo, and nothing ever changes. Which is more risky? Ask that question and see what your prospects say. Oh my gosh, it'd be far more risky if I don't do anything. Because it is. The problems stay the same. It's your responsibility as a salesperson to help them find those problems that they didn't know they had and then offer the solution that will solve that. And if you can't do that, you are literally letting them stay in status quo and nothing will ever change for them. It's your problem. It's your fault, not theirs.
Yeah.
You just have to learn the right questions.
I'm conscious of your time, mate. So I've got a couple of extra questions, and I have got a little bit of intel on you, and I believe that you're a bit of a CrossFit whiz.
I'm not a CrossFit whiz. I just try to stay in shape where I don't have a belly.
Fair enough. Well, I'm 39. I was 39 on Monday, right? So I've been told since my early 20s that it was going to catch up with me one day, and I'm going to have a beer belly and a dad bod. It's not happening just yet. But how important is health to you then? Like staying in shape. How does that impact you in a business environment?
Well, I think health gives you longevity. It doesn't matter. Your selling skills can be amazing, but if you're in your mid 40s and you're, 150 pounds overweight and you have a heart attack, it doesn't really matter. Right. So I think your health is, I would say, the most important thing that you have, because you have to have energy to be able to communicate. I'm not a person that's like, I have to eat this type of food, and I have to meditate 3 hours a day, and I have to listen to my spiritual guide, and then I have to journal for 1 hour, and all of a sudden I'm going to have success in sales. No, none of that matters when the prospect picks up the other phone and says hello. If you don't know what to say or ask, that triggers them to want to engage, you can throw all the personal development out the window, because you're going to get smacked in your face. It's like everybody has a plan until you get smacked in the face, like Mike Tyson. I see so many salespeople like, well, I'm journaling. I don't understand. I'm journaling. I'm listening to personal development all day. I don't understand why I'm having not success. I'm working 12 hours a day. Oh, I know why. Because you don't know what questions to ask that triggers them to want to open up and to be able to view you as the expert or the trusted authority that's going to get them where they want. Has nothing to do with your personal development, has nothing to do with your journaling, has nothing to do with your meditation, nothing. Okay. But health does. Obviously, you're 150 pounds overweight. You're not going to have the energy to work an extra hour a day. You're not going to have the energy to study and role play more. So you want to, I'm not the most, I'm pretty decent shape. I'm not like Arnold Schwarzenegger or anything. I don't have like a 16 pack. I've got maybe a 2-pack. I don't know. But you want to keep in decent shape for sure, because it just gives you more energy during the day.
And are you quite structured with your day then to make sure that we fit that in? Are you
Yeah, I'm pretty structured. Yeah. I work out about at least 4 times a week. CrossFit is a thing, as CrossFit, you can go 4 times a week and stay in pretty good shape, because it's pretty intense, right? Like if I was just going to the regular gym, I think I'd have to go every day to get the same intensity, but I can go 4 times a week and stay in pretty decent shape for sure.
Yeah. Amazing. Last question. Hopium. Tell me about hopium really quickly.
Well, hopium is a drug that so many salespeople are on. And one thing that I want to specify, because a lot of people ask me like, Jeremy, what, just boil it down to one word. What is selling? Like, what is sales? And I always say this, all selling is change. It's about one thing only, and that's change. That's it. It's about how good you are at helping your prospect view in their mind, like we just talked about, that by changing their situation, paying for your product or service is far less risky for them than doing nothing at all, staying in the status quo, problems stay the same, and nothing ever changes, which is more risky. So whether your prospects want something better or they're trying to get away from pain, it's about one thing only. It's about change. Now, here's the problem though. Human beings do not like change, even though they say they do. Okay. It makes us feel uncomfortable. It makes us feel unsettled, especially when it's initiated by like pushy, manipulative salespeople who are ready to pitch their products or service like within the first 30 seconds of a conversation. Human behavior shows that we value tradition, consistency, and something that is familiar over something that we don't like at all, or something that is new and foreign to us. So one thing we have to realize is that we're not selling the thing. I always say this, you're not selling the thing. You're selling the results of that thing. You're not selling the insurance policy. You're selling the financial results of that when you die for your family. You're not selling the car. You're selling maybe the gas mileage that car is going to give you if that's what you wanted. You're not selling the home. You're selling them the extra 2 bedrooms they need for their 2 twins that they just had. That's what you're selling. You're selling the results of that thing. You're not selling the leads. You're selling the results those leads bring to the company. That's what you're selling. So we have to understand that selling is about one thing only, and it's about change. Once we understand that, it becomes pretty easy to wrap everything around that.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Jeremy, thank you sincerely for your time. So many little nuggets of gold throughout that as well. If people want to find out more about 7th Level or yourself,
the best place to go is our Facebook group. It's called Sales Revolution. Have we given you a link to that?
I'm in the group. So I can share that on the back of this podcast.
Yeah, go ahead and share that. I'll have my assistant email you the link as well. It's a free group. We've got almost 11,000 people in there. We started, I don't know, that group about 9-10 months ago. It's growing very rapidly. You know, our CEO, Matt Ryder, our VP of Sales, Marco. So we go live in that group about 3 to 4 times a week, which is free training. We do a Q&A. We break down sales processes of our clients. We're all about helping people sell more, even if your clients are not. We don't really care, okay? We do a Q&A every week. We do a training every week. I just did a training today on consequence questions for 30 minutes. So once you join the group, there's like a 2 or 3 question survey, like what industry you're in, what products or services you sell. That helps us better understand who's coming into the group. We get all sorts of industries. And then what will happen is right when you join the group, we'll tag you. Somebody on my team will tag you. Okay. And then we will private message you over on Facebook Messenger. We'll private message you a free training on objection prevention. So it's like a 35-minute training I did a couple months ago on how to prevent objections from even happening in your prospect's mind. So feel free to have your people go to Sales Revolution. I'll send you the link and they can join that for free if they want.
Amazing.
That's the best way to learn about us.
I will say that is one of the most practical groups that I'm in Facebook. There's so many out there. You get in there, it's just a pitch fest, and this definitely is not that. There's lots of testimonials and real life results. So get yourself in there. For everybody
we just hit over 4,000 testimonials. We're at 4,033 actually for the first 3 years. Most of those have come in the last year and a half, which is crazy.
And what I love about that, the Facebook group, is the transparency of it, right? They're real people. You can reach out to them. If you want to find out more about your training, you can actually just ask your real life clients today, which is
you can ask anybody in your group. They'll tell you for sure. You're the man. I've heard great things about your company over in Australia. Matt and Mark always brag about you and your success. So well done. You must know something if you're doing that well.
I appreciate it. I'm just the boring guy over here giving it a go, you know? So I
like it.
Jeremy, appreciate you, mate. For everybody listening, thanks for listening. I hope you found that valuable. I've been Ryan Tuckwood. I'll see you on the next episode of The Swish Show, and have yourself a wonderful day.
Thanks, Ryan.